Okay, we're back. So the first question is, flashback to your undergraduate years. What is the advice you give your younger self if you go?
Well, for me, undergraduate was not straightforward. I finished my first school cert in 1976. And I had a poor grade 3.
1976.
1976.
Wow.
Then in 1977, my mom encouraged me to sit for the exam again. I did. It was the year of the Orijo when there was mass exam leakage.
Yeah.
And so my result was withheld.
Wow.
Then my mother sent me again, a third time in 1978.
Wow.
But life was better then because between 1976 and 77, I became an errand boy at a bookstore. I was able to find a job as an errand boy.
Yeah.
So I used to, sweep the floor, clean, the desks and all those things at CSS bookshops in Ile-Ife.
Yeah.
Then thereafter, I became a village teacher in a very remote part of Ile-Ife. I became a village teacher. Thereafter, I got a job at the University of Ife Library between 1977 and 1978.
It's before you enter university.
That's before I entered the university. That's why I said you have to prepare. So that was the period I was preparing myself for the journey ahead.
Yeah.
So in 1978, I sat for JAMB. We were the first set of JAMB.
Wow.
So we were the first set of JAMBites. And so I was admitted to study Yoruba at the University of Ife.
Wow.
That was before it became Obafemi Awolowo University.
Yeah.
So we entered, and when we started, we were about 70-something that started. By this following year, we had dropped down.
Wow.
By the time I finished, there were only 6 of us that did Yoruba single honors. Yeah, everybody ran away.
Yeah, because they felt it wasn't a worthy course.
I know some people felt it wasn't funky,
Yes.
it wasn't trendy.
How can you tell people
that you are studying Yoruba? Even my mother asked me, "Ayobamide Leshe was in I only read that told you. Are you such a dullard that you will go to university to go and study Yoruba?" So at any rate, I was able to complete that, and I was originally posted to Bauchi State for my national service, but Bauchi bounced me back to Ibadan because the headquarters at that time was in Ibadan.
Okay.
So I went to Ibadan and told them that Bauchi says they don't need a Yoruba graduate. And that was how they now forwarded me to Ile-Ife, where I was born. They sent me to Ife, Oyo State College of Arts and Science, where I lectured Yoruba and part-time English literature. And so that was the gig. But the lesson for me,
the advice to your younger self.
We had loads of celebrity lecturers. I don't know what has happened. You can imagine a Wole Soyinka teaching you in class in those days.
Wow.
Those were the caliber of people who were sitting around us. We had lecturers who came from abroad.
Wow.
One of the greatest African poets, Okot Bitek, the Ugandan poet, was in Ife.
Wow.
He was teaching us.
Wow.
We had one of the greatest poets out of Africa from Malawi, Professor David Rubadiri. He was teaching us. So you can imagine the Dr. Yemi Ogunbiyi is, Dr. Okoli Omotosho. These were big names. Professor Wale Abimbola. Dr. Akinwumi Shola. In those days, these were writers. Akinwumi Shola wrote Oleku, wrote Efuncheta Aniwura. These were people that we used to read about, and now they became our lecturers. So that really inspired us. I think the Nigerian government must do everything possible to make teaching attractive, so that our students can benefit from the wealth of experience of these great teachers. So the moment you start your foundation with that caliber of teaching, there is no way you will not. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a lecturer.
A lecturer, because all your role models.
A vice chancellor was like a governor in those days.
Wow.
So the lesson for me is that you must prepare. Then don't wait for lectures only. Now you can study on your own without talking to any lecturer. Go on your telephone instead of sitting on the phone, busy abusing people or chasing girls or doing whatever. Please, that foundation is key. When people say I'm a good writer, I can tell you that before I became a writer, I had read what great writers had written. Before I started traveling, I already knew so many countries just from reading. I'll give you an example. If I wanted to talk about Cameroon, I read the books of Mongo Betty. I read the books of Ferdinand Oyono. I read the book of Mbelasone Dipoko in Cameroon. So I already had a graphic picture. The first time I went to Douala, when I went to Yaoundé, I already knew from reading the books.
Wow.
Before I started going to Kenya, I read the books of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I read the books of Meja Mwagi. So, and Ngugi in particular influenced me greatly because he was so radical in his writing.
Wow.
Then when you talk about Ghana, I read about The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, written by Yikoyama. I met him eventually in 2016.
Wow.
I'd always looked forward. So Ghana, I knew a lot about Ghana even before I started going to Ghana.
Wow.
I read the works of the founding father, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the GFO of Ghana.
Wow.
And, you know, it inspired me about Pan-Africanism. I read about the Mwalimu, Julius Nyerere in Tanzania.
Wow.
I read about Kenneth Kaunda in Zambia. You know, I read about Jomo Kenyatta, Ojinga Odinga, and all of them in Kenya. You know, I read about Leopold Sedar Senghor in Senegal. You know, I read about life in Egypt by reading the works of Nawal El Saadawi and Naguib Mahfouz, who became the second African to win a Nobel Prize in Literature.
Wow.
So that background was there. It wasn't as if we just woke up one day. We had no rich father, we had no rich mother. In fact, I lost my father, it will be 50 years this year.
Wow.
I was 13 years when I lost my father. So,
when did you lose your mom?
my mom died in 2007.
Oh,
you know, so when you look at, that's why I said children of poor people cannot afford to sleep too much. That is what kept pushing me.
Children of poor people
cannot afford to sleep too much. I didn't want to go back to that poverty. So I had to continue to work. And then one lesson I also learned was about being independent. Till today, that is my approach. Some people will disagree with me, but I love my independence. You see, if you want to make yourself a voluntary slave, then go and attach yourself voluntarily to your slave master. I learned that right from school, that my life is dependent on God and my hard work. Don't think anything is going to be easy. The people you expect to make life easy for you, they will disappoint you ultimately.
Very true.
You know, so that has been my lesson of life, and I pray that all the people watching us will learn one or two things from this.
Amen.
And get inspired. And those who don't learn, I hope maybe from other sources they will also learn. You know, because nobody can give it all.
And life is a teacher. It's a very good teacher.
Endless university.
Poverty is also a teacher.
It is. It is.
So guys, I hope we answered your question. Do you have a question there? If you have any question for Chief Dele Momodu, feel free to ask. And if you're watching from my own handle, I don't mind pulling you up as well, so you can just send a request and we'll pull you up and you can ask your question from him directly. So if you have any question, feel free to ask. I will ask, why did you love traveling? I mean, you are one of the most traveled Nigerians. I'm trying to join you people's list, I think.
You have joined already.
From Obasanjo, yourself, who else?
Chivemkeo in those days.
Yes,
Abiola.
of course, Chivemkeo.
Yeah, he traveled so much.
I think those are the two major that I can recall now that travel a lot. So,
and imagine without having private jets.
Exactly, without having private jets. So my question is, why is traveling that important to you?
Traveling is a form of education.
Yes.
Everywhere you go in the world, you pick up something new.
Very true.
Even there are countries I've been to 10, 20 times, and every time I go, I discover something new. Especially a place like Dubai.
Yeah.
If you haven't been in Dubai in the last 5-6 years, you may be confused because a lot of developments would have come up.